Imagine lying down to sleep in a stone castle, the wind howling through cracks in the walls, your breath turning to mist in the air. There is no central heating, no glass windows, and no warm blankets like today. Just cold stone, damp air, and the constant fear that the night itself might kill you. For the people of the Middle Ages, this was not a nightmare. This was reality. Sleeping was not just about resting, it was about surviving. Before we dive into the chilling truth of medieval nights, do me a quick favor. Hit the like button and tell us in the comments where in the world you're watching from. I love seeing how far this channel reaches. And don't forget to subscribe, because every week we uncover another strange, shocking, and crazy story from the Dark Ages. When we imagine castles, it is easy to picture luxury, great halls, roaring fires, and lords and ladies wrapped in velvet. But the truth was very different. For most people who lived inside, a medieval castle was not a warm home. It was a fortress, and fortresses were built for defense, not comfort. The walls, sometimes more than 2 meters thick, were designed to stop arrows and catapults, not the icy winds of winter. Stone does not keep warmth. It traps cold, radiating a damp chill that seeps into the bones. Even on days when the sun shone outside, the interior of a castle could remain cold and shadowed, like a cave. Windows made things worse. Glass was rare and expensive, reserved for churches or the very richest nobles. Most castle windows were open slits or covered with thin cloth, oiled parchment or wooden shutters. They let in light, but they also let in the wind, the rain, and sometimes snow. Imagine trying to sleep while the winter air whistled through gaps in the shutters. The great hall, where many people slept, might have a fire in the center. But the smoke often filled the room, stinging eyes and throats, and the heat rarely reached the corners. At night, once the fire died down, the hall turned cold again. For servants and guards who had no private chambers, this was daily reality, sleeping in groups wrapped in rough wool, sometimes pressed against animals for warmth. Even nobles suffered. Their private chambers were larger and had fireplaces, but a single fire could not heat such vast stone rooms. The flames gave light and warmth nearby, but just a few steps away the cold ruled. At night, with the fire burning low, the temperature dropped quickly. It was common for frost to form on the inside of walls and windows. This constant cold shaped medieval life. People went to bed wearing layers of clothing, shirts, tunics, stockings, and hats. Sleeping hats were not a fashion statement, they were survival. Beds had heavy curtains, not only for privacy, but to trap body heat inside. The bed became a small chamber within the chamber, a fragile shield against the freezing night. And it wasn't only about comfort. Cold could kill. Elderly people, children, and the sick were especially vulnerable. Hypothermia, though not named as such, was a silent danger. Chronicles tell of people who went to bed healthy and were found lifeless in the morning, victims of the chill. This was the challenge of sleeping in a medieval castle. A life surrounded by walls that promised protection from enemies, but offered little against the enemy of winter. The stone, the drafts, the smoke, the endless damp, all combined to make every night a test of endurance. To live in a castle was to accept the cold as part of existence, and every person, from the lowliest servant to the highest lord, had to find ways to fight it, or risk never waking up again. If you were not a noble, your nights inside a castle looked very different. Servants, guards, and workers slept where they could, often in the great hall, the kitchens, or even in the corridors. Privacy was a luxury they did not know. Warmth came not from a fireplace, but from the bodies of others, huddled together against the cold. Straw was the most common bedding, but straw was not clean nor soft. It was stuffed into sacks or spread on the floor and quickly filled with lice, fleas, and vermin. People scratched through the night, and the smell of sweat, smoke, and unwashed clothes filled the air. Changing the straw was rare, so it grew damp and rotten, but it was better than lying directly on the stone. Blankets were scarce. Most peasants and servants slept fully dressed, wrapped in whatever cloth they owned. Wool tunics doubled as blankets, cloaks were pulled tight, and even boots might be left on. At night, layers were everything. The idea of sleeping naked, as some do today, would have seemed insane in a medieval winter. One of the strangest realities was that animals often shared the sleeping space. Dogs, chickens, goats, even pigs could be brought inside to generate extra warmth. Their breath and bodies added heat to the room, and though it was noisy and dirty, it was survival. Imagine trying to sleep with a goat tied at your feet, or pigs shifting in the corner. For many, this was normal. Group sleeping also meant group sounds. Snoring, coughing, groaning in dreams, all blended into a constant background. Servants lay packed close together, sometimes shoulder to shoulder, not out of affection, but out of necessity. The more bodies, the more heat. And yet this intimacy also carried shame. Accidents happened, people relieving themselves at night, children wetting the straw, sickness spreading in the dark. The smell lingered, turning the act of sleep into another hardship. For guards and soldiers, the situation was even harsher. Some had to sleep in their armor or at least partially dressed, ready to answer an alarm at any hour. Cold drafts passed through guard posts and towers, and a soldier might wake with his beard frozen stiff. Fatigue was constant, and many learned to sleep in short bursts, their rest always at the mercy of duty. The church influenced even the way common people slept. Night was often divided into two segments, first sleep and second sleep. People went to bed shortly after dark, slept a few hours, then woke in the middle of the night. Some prayed, some tended fires, some even visited neighbors. Then they went back to bed until dawn. This broken pattern of sleep made sense in a world lit only by fire and moonlight, but to us it feels utterly alien. So what was it like to be a servant sleeping in a medieval castle? It was to lie on dirty straw, wrapped in your only clothes, pressed against strangers and animals, half resting, half shivering, half scratching. It was not comfort, but survival. And every morning, waking up meant one simple thing: you had endured another night that could easily have killed you. At first glance, it may seem that nobles had it easy compared to the servants huddled on straw in smoky halls. And in some ways they did. Noble chambers were private, large and filled with furnishings that peasants could never dream of. But luxury in the Middle Ages came with its own challenges. The noble bed was the centerpiece of the chamber. These were not small pieces of furniture. They were large wooden frames, often raised off the ground to escape the chill of the stone floors. The mattress was stuffed with straw, wool, or even feathers for the wealthiest. Sheets of linen and blankets of wool or fur layered above, sometimes so heavy it was hard to move beneath them. Most beds had thick curtains on all sides. To us they might seem decorative, but they served a vital purpose, trapping body heat inside. The bed became a little warm box within the freezing chamber. Without these curtains, nobles would shiver like their servants, for even the thickest stone walls did nothing to stop the night cold. Clothing was still necessary. Even nobles did not slip into bedclothes like ours today. They wore long linen shirts, woolen stockings, and of course the ever-present nightcap. The idea of sleeping bare-skinned beneath silk sheets was more fantasy than reality. Survival required fabric between the body and the cold. Fireplaces helped, but only to a point. A single fire could not heat the vast chambers of a castle. The flames gave light and warmth near the hearth, but only a few feet away, shadows and frost crept in. It was not uncommon to wake and see one's own breath misting in the air, even while lying beneath layers of fur. The wealthy also faced their own kind of discomfort. Bedding, though expensive, was rarely washed. Linen sheets might be changed, but blankets and mattresses carried years of use along with fleas, lice and smells that never fully went away. Even in grandeur, the noble bed was far from truly clean. Stranger still were the sleeping arrangements. In many noble households, sleeping was not private. Beds were shared not only by spouses but also by children, siblings, or even important guests. Sharing a bed was a sign of trust, friendship, and sometimes politics. Ambassadors, fellow knights, or noble visitors might sleep side by side, a practice shocking to modern minds but common in medieval courts. Servants were also present. Her chamberlain or maid might sleep on the floor nearby, ready to tend the fire, fetch water, or respond to the Lord's call. Privacy, as we understand it, simply did not exist. And yet, for all the strangeness, the noble bed was still a mark of status. Its size, its curtains, its feather mattress, These were symbols as powerful as a knight's armor or a lady's jewels. It said, "Here sleeps someone important, someone above the cold struggles of the common folk." But the truth was inescapable. Even nobles, wrapped in fur and lying beneath heavy curtains, felt the icy breath of winter. Their wealth gave them comfort, yes, but not immunity. When the wind howled through the castle walls, even the lords and ladies shivered in their beds, praying for dawn. To sleep in the Middle Ages was never just about resting. It was also about navigating a world of superstition, fear, and ritual. For medieval people, the night belonged not only to sleep, but to spirits, dreams, and dangers unseen. One of the strangest aspects of medieval sleep was its rhythm. Instead of one long stretch through the night, many people practiced what historians call segmented sleep. They would go to bed shortly after sunset and sleep for 3 or 4 hours. Then, in the middle of the night, they would wake for an hour or two. This was called the watch. During this time, some prayed, others tended the fire, and some even visited neighbors or worked quietly. Then they returned to bed for a second sleep until dawn. This broken pattern made sense in a world without artificial light. The night was long, and dividing it gave people a way to cope with the darkness. But to us, the idea of waking halfway through the night to pray or chat feels almost alien. Superstition was woven into the act of sleeping. People believed that night was when demons, spirits, and witches were most active. A bad dream could be interpreted as a sign from God or a warning from the devil. Charms and prayers were recited before bed to keep evil at bay. Some hung crosses above their beds, others kept relics or herbs nearby, convinced they protected against nightmares or nocturnal attacks. Position mattered too. Sleeping on the back was discouraged, since it was thought to invite bad dreams or even demons to press upon the chest. Many believed it was safer to sleep on the right side, associated with righteousness, than on the left, which was linked to sin and the devil. Animals in the room added to the strangeness. The crowing of a rooster at midnight was seen as a bad omen. A dog howling in the night could mean death was near. The night was alive with meaning, and every sound or vision could spark fear. The church also shaped sleep through prayer cycles. Monks rose at fixed hours to chant the divine office, breaking the night into segments of worship. Ordinary people, inspired by this rhythm, often blended prayer into their nightly routine. A whispered pater noster before closing one's eyes was as much protection as it was devotion. But beyond faith and fear, the medieval night carried practical dangers. Without light, fires could spread from an untended flame. Thieves or enemies could strike under cover of darkness, and sickness, worsened by cold and damp, often attacked during the night. Waking to a cough, a fever, or the cries of a child in distress was a common, dreaded occurrence. To sleep in the Middle Ages was to expose oneself not only to the cold, but to the mysteries of night. It was a time when reality and superstition blurred, when dreams carried messages, and when the simple act of lying down meant entering a realm where faith, fear, and survival collided. The way medieval people slept may seem alien to us today, but its legacy has never fully disappeared. Every time we close our eyes, traces of their habits, fears, and survival strategies remain with us. Take the bed itself. The medieval idea of a bed as a small enclosed space, surrounded by curtains, survives in the canopy bed. What began as a practical way to keep in heat became, over time, a symbol of wealth and elegance. Even today, the image of a grand four-poster bed carries echoes of those freezing chambers in stone castles. The segmented sleep pattern also left its mark. Though most of us now sleep in one stretch, studies have shown that our bodies still naturally drift into cycles of waking and sleeping during the night. The first sleep and second sleep of medieval people may have vanished, but the rhythm lingers deep in human biology. Clothing habits too have echoes. The medieval nightcap, once a necessity, survives as a cultural symbol of sleep, still seen in stories, cartoons, and even Christmas tales. What was once protection against hypothermia has become a cozy emblem of bedtime. Our relationship with animals also traces back to medieval nights. While few of us share our beds with pigs or goats, millions still sleep beside dogs or cats. The warmth, comfort, and companionship of an animal at night was a survival tactic in the Middle Ages, and it has transformed into a choice today. Superstitions have shifted, but they remain. We may not fear demons pressing on our chests, but many still believe in dream interpretations, lucky charms, or bedtime prayers. The line between science and superstition in sleep has never completely vanished. Even our architecture whispers of the past. Modern homes, insulated and heated, are designed for comfort, but the fear of drafts and damp that haunted castle dwellers gave rise to traditions like thick blankets, layered bedding, and even shared sleeping for warmth. The memory of cold, once deadly, shaped the way we build and furnish our bedrooms. Perhaps the greatest legacy is psychological. For medieval people, sleep was survival. Every night brought risk of cold, of sickness, of bad dreams, of not waking at all. That constant vulnerability made sleep sacred, guarded by prayer, rituals, and shared closeness. Today, even with heated rooms and electric lights, we still treat the night as a time apart, a space where our defenses drop, where mystery lingers, where dreams connect us to something deeper. So when we ask how medieval people slept in castles without freezing to death, the answer is clear: with effort, with ritual, with fear, and with creativity. They layered clothes, pulled curtains, huddled together, whispered prayers, and endured the icy breath of stone walls. Their survival each night was a triumph, and in every bed we lie in today, beneath every blanket we pull tight, their legacy continues. The medieval night is not gone. It lingers in our habits, our fears, and the silent hope that when morning comes, we too will wake again. So now you know the truth about sleeping in a medieval castle. It wasn't luxury, it wasn't comfort, it was survival. Stone walls trapped the cold, winds slipped through every crack, and even the richest lords and ladies shivered beneath layers of fur. Servants huddled on straw, pressed against one another, and even against animals, just to make it through the night. Nobles curled up in curtained beds, their fires burning low, praying the warmth would last until dawn. And everyone, from the humblest guard to the wealthiest king, shared the same fear. That sleep could bring death before morning. Yet out of this nightly battle against the cold, traditions were born. The canopy bed, the nightcap, the comfort of sharing warmth with animals or loved ones, all have their roots in those freezing medieval nights. The way we sleep today still carries the memory of a time when every night was a test. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video with another strange, shocking, and crazy chapter from the Dark Ages.